Hello and welcome to the Total Saints podcast. We are the weekly Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. This podcast is being live streamed on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch and on YouTube. Our podcast is entirely supported by our loyal Patreon community. Without you, we couldn't make this show each week. And a huge welcome to Jonathan H, who's joined our Bobby Stokes tier since the last episode. So thanks to Jonathan. We really appreciate your support. If you fancy joining the gang, I've got all the details on the way very soon. Coming up this week on the podcast, we've got two games to review. The visit of Birmingham City to St Mary's at the weekend and that midweek trip to Preston North End. I have to be honest, there is a real danger that this could be an overly positive podcast. So just a heads up if you're a regular. Plus, Saints are on their travels this weekend with the trip up the M3 to Millwall. Going to preview that game with the help of Micky from That Millwall Podcast. My name's Martin Starke and I'm joined by our regular contributors. Glen Cour is the writer of the blog League 1-10. Steve Grant is the owner of SaintsWeb and Alfie House is senior reporter for Southampton at the Southern Daily Echo. All underpinned by our TSP patrons. This is episode 249 of the Total Saints podcast. Now, before the football, just a regular shout out for our Patreon community because the monthly contributions do support the show and we couldn't make this podcast without their support. There are 4 tiers ranging from £5 to £20 per month. And aside from supporting the podcast, each of those tiers has different perks like access to an ad-free version of the podcast. There's exclusive TSP t-shirts and merch bundles, the TSP FPL, plus you get access to some of the TSP events that we're planning and much more. Now, if you'd like to get involved in supporting TSP each month, head over to patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast for more details. All the links are in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description. So all the cameras and the attention may have been on new Birmingham manager Wayne Rooney, but it was Saints who stole the show with a decent win, 3-1 the final score. Steve, pretty comfortable in the end and nice to get 3 goals at home.
Yeah, and finally we've won a game by more than a single goal. Which is another one of those sort of minor sort of irritating things that we've managed to get off our backs this week. Yeah, it was comfortable. Birmingham didn't offer a great deal until they made a substitution that at the time looked really puzzling because the lad they took off was by far their best player. And then obviously they bring Jay Stansfield on and Cole Walker-Peters dozes off for a second and all of a sudden it's game on. But once we kind of got our heads around it, we had a proper wobble for 10 minutes after that. But once we kind of got our composure back and substitutions that we made help that, I think kind of settled the game down a little bit more. Once we got our heads back in the game, there was no real contest and put the icing on the cake with that third goal. Could have had a couple more really if finishing or sort of decisions in the final third had been slightly better, but yeah, good win. Made sure that we were sort of the positive side of the media storm with regards to Birmingham's new manager, and yeah, we're looking pretty well set now, I think.
Yeah, there's plenty to get into. Glen, obviously the subs coming on had a real impact and helped us get control back of the game because we did have that wobble, seems to be the buzzword, but just after the break, things not going so well, you thought, well, maybe we're going to collapse again here, but that wasn't the case and we were able to see the game out.
Yeah, they did make a difference, and that's, you know, it's a thing that Russell Martin is beginning to get right. Making the substitutions at the right time, but it is easier. We have a stronger bench than most other Championship clubs, so you can make a few like-for-like replacements, and it does the business. Mind you, when Aribo came on first, I was a bit nonplussed, I have to say. But after
he made a tackle.
After he spent 10 minutes trying to get to the pace of the game and actually touch the ball, he actually did okay once he got into it. So yeah, I think that the substitutions certainly helped us, and you know, Ryan Fraser and Sam Adozie combining to set up Adam Armstrong's goal, you know, finish things off. But it's another game where if you just look at the first half, we should have been, you know, it was another game we should have won 4-0. I thought Birmingham were pathetic. To be honest, and do we get money from TalkSport if we say Wayne Rooney's Birmingham? If we say it a lot, do we Do we get an extra £1 every time that's mentioned? I didn't think for a guy who's come in and he sold himself on we're going to play some football. Their centre halves and goalkeeper didn't want to do that at all. They just wanted to smash the ball at the park. Yeah. Illustrated by the goal they got. But the third goal sort of finished it off and made it more of a reflection. And I know, like the Preston guy, they're moaning about the penalty they didn't get. I think with more justification this time, but just a little bit.
Can't believe that wasn't given.
No, me neither. Even at first view, I thought that's not good, and I was up the other end. But yeah, we finished the game off nicely, and if anything, over the course of the game, I'd say 3-1 flattered Birmingham a little bit, to be honest, and we probably should have won by more.
Alfie, that little few moments after the second half and after the restart is something they're going to have to work on. You'd think they need to address that, but almost faultless for pretty much 3/4 of the game.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think sort of Glen and Steve did mention it, but they have had that wobble now. What is it, 3 or 4 games in a row? But each time they've recovered and they've got points out of it. Yes, it was 2 very, very late goals against Hull and Preston. But I think there is actually a bit of a mentality of keeping going, and I think they're bang on as well. The subs, positive changes all the time. You can bring a lot of strength from. To be fair to Wayne Rooney, although he was moaning about the penalty, he actually did take it quite gracefully. He did say that he'd much rather have that happen every week than not have VAR in the Championship. He's not interested in having VAR, so fair play to him. And I did ask him about Russell Martin a little bit as well, because both of their ownerships at Swansea and DC United were the same, and he's a lot of credit to Russell. They know each other before the game, so Wayne actually was quite graceful in defeat, I felt. So a little bit of stick unjust perhaps for England, but many players that I wanted to, so many players I wanted to mention, because James Bree has come back in the team this week, and I don't know if any of us saw that happen. And to be fair, you guys did mention it last week, and I was certain it wouldn't happen. But fair play to him. He's come in. I thought he was decent against Preston. I thought he was really good again against Birmingham. Yeah, so it would be tough for Ryan Manning to come back in now, I'd imagine. I think Bree will start at Millwall.
Yeah, that's one of the questions for later. Who starts? Because he had a great week, to be fair. The whole back four, Steve, have been doing all right. Defensively, we're looking a lot more settled. Obviously, Harwood Bellis had a good game yesterday, and Bednarek was announced as man of the match, and obviously Russell Martin was waxing lyrical about him afterwards too. So things are starting to look solid at last.
Yeah, finally, and it comes back to that structure, doesn't it? You've got a well, I was going to say settled back four, but all of a sudden we've made one fairly major change to it. But you got a relatively settled back five, really, with the keeper, and now we've got what seems to be a structure in midfield, supporting it and giving it a lot more protection. That's obviously come at the cost of Shay Charles's place, which I think, 6 weeks ago, if you'd said that Charles is the one that's going to make way and everything's going to fall into place, I'd have laughed at you, quite frankly, because the performances of even Downs and Smallbone, both of those were poor in those games where in that run of four where we were losing, and Charles was the one that even though he made a couple of individual mistakes, he was the guy that looked like he had the kind of know-how for the system, and actually it's turned out that the other guys do know. They've just got to be played in the right positions, and I think we've possibly stumbled upon it maybe a little bit, but a little bit of trial and error, and we've possibly finally found the system that works for us. And defensively, as you say, Bednarek getting announced as the man of the match, despite having, he had no sort of obvious sort of individual specific input on the game. There was no sort of one particular tackle that he won, no sort of goal-saving block, didn't score, didn't assist.
Who picks that? Do we know?
I assume it's the match sponsor.
It was odd because when the club did the poll after the game for who was your man of the match, he wasn't one of the options.
Yeah, that's odd.
It might just be that everybody played out their skin, but I just found it a little bit strange.
But it was. I think it was a fair choice, but it was I think the key with Bednarek is that it was very noticeable, especially first half, where where I'm in the northern stand, when we're kicking towards the chapel, you see the defensive structure quite well from that position. And it was very noticeable that every single little passing triangle was with a view to getting Bednarek on the ball. He was the guy that was progressing the ball and passing it through the lines. They then occasionally try and switch it to Walker-Peters, but Birmingham were cutting that passing lane off quite well, so the ball didn't go out there as much. Even though Walker-Peters was often in loads of space, the ball just didn't go out there because the passing angle was blocked, unless you want them to go over the top, which I think we've probably cut those out as with an idea of they're slightly too risky, which is fair enough. But the passes into midfield were all coming from Bednarek, and that was the key to getting 3 or 4 Birmingham players behind the ball, and giving us a little bit of space to operate in. And that first half, I mean, we carved them open time after time. And as Glen said earlier, we probably should have won by more, really. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of argue with how we're setting up now.
And just a word for Flynn Downs, Alfie, because he was described as, was it monstrous? I think the word's used.
He gets called monstrous every week now, in fairness. Yeah.
That's a nickname which could stick, and long may it continue, because it's a very different player to the one that we signed.
Yeah, and look, I think we all said it, didn't we? I think he actually was very ill before joining, and clearly wasn't ready to play. And I think maybe we discounted that a little bit. We didn't quite realise, but he is well into full fitness now. He's everywhere, so controlled on the ball, so controlled or so aggressive out of it, off the ball, and I think he's up there with the signing of the summer. I don't know who else I would put up there with him, but I mean, if there's any option to keep him, I know we're sort of very early days, but if there's any option to keep him beyond this summer, I would be activating that as soon as possible. I'm not sure there is, unfortunately. I think, obviously Taylor Harwood-Bellis as well. I think those two signings are potentially players they wouldn't have been able to get without the personnel that have come in. I don't know if we'd have been able to get Taylor Harwood-Bellis if Jason Wilcox wasn't there, and I think it's pretty unlikely that Flynn Downs would have come here, although he did need games, if Russell Martin wasn't the manager. So yeah, a bit of stroke of fortune with those two, but Flynn Downs is absolutely brilliant.
I think, as you pointed out yesterday, Glenn, we're in pretty good shape, but a decent striker does transform that team. We'll get on to Wednesday night in a minute, but that was kind of case in point as well, wasn't it? The ball was into the box and just nobody there sometimes.
I thought so. I mean, if you look at both the Birmingham and the Preston games, in both games we've had 75 to 80% possession. But if you look at the shots on target, we had the same number as Preston, and we also had the same number as Birmingham, despite being the dominant team. So it still says to me that we're not really creating enough at the sharp end of the pitch, in terms of getting shots on goal. And Adam Armstrong is confusing me this season, because he had a goal and an assist yesterday, and you can't knock that. That at the end of the day is what the game is about. But I thought a lot of his sort of play in open play was quite poor, in that he would get knocked off the ball, he would try a pass that wouldn't work and stuff like that, and a lot of our attacks broke down on him. And I just can't help but think that overall as a team, we, if Ross Stewart turns out to be what we want him to be, then it will take the whole team to a different level. And then we are 4-0 up against Rotherham at half time. We have put Birmingham out of sight, and their goal doesn't matter. That's kind of the way. I think we're in very good shape at the moment, but I still feel at the moment that this we do have a bit of a gap up front. I'm not saying for a second Adam Armstrong shouldn't play, but I think that there is more to come, from the team in that area.
Do you think, Steve, Ross Stewart comes in for Alcaraz? Is that kind of how that works, or how do you get them both in the team, or is it one or the other? Because if Ross Stewart is the player that we think we've signed, then it will be a nice problem.
Certainly a nice problem to have. I don't know. I think I kind of see him as our main focal point. So I think, unless you're going to play Adam Armstrong out wide, which I kind of rather not. We seem to have decided that he can play in midfield on the strength of one decent performance away at Plymouth. But I kind of think that he's probably end up going to replace Adam Armstrong. I just can't see who else he replaces. Charlie Alcaraz is our most technically gifted player for me. If he's fit and he's in form, you start him. Okay, he might not. He probably isn't going to last 90 minutes every week, because his kind of style is so sort of all action. And maybe that's kind of one thing that Russell Martin could be coaching him, is how to kind of conserve your energy a little bit, because you don't need to be herring after everything from the first whistle. You got to kind of pace yourself, and that was one thing that I think James Ward-Prowse always did brilliantly, was that while yes he had the stamina to go the full 90 plus minutes, but it was because he knew when to go into sort of that overdrive pressing mode and when to sit back. So if we can kind of teach that to Alcaraz in a slightly different way, because he's obviously not the same sort of player. We want him to be much more attack focused and being the guy that links the midfield to the attack, and getting in the box and scoring goals like he did yesterday. I mean, him getting beyond the centre forward and being the guy on the line to tap it in is exactly what the player in that position should be doing. So that's a great sign from yesterday. But I would like to see Alcaraz starting every game when fit. So I as I say, I think as and when Stewart is up to speed, I think he's coming in as a centre forward, and it's Adam Armstrong that might lose out, which sounds ridiculous when he's one goal off the top scorers in the league.
Yeah,
he's also started every game for Russell Martin. He's played only less minutes than Kyle Walker-Peters. He's operated in like 3 or 4 different positions. So I would personally be very surprised if Adam Armstrong comes out of that team at all this season.
I don't think it will necessarily happen. It's just from a positional perspective, I think it's what makes the most sense.
I would see
if Stewart is as good as we think.
I would see it as Campbell Dean and Adam Armstrong either side of Ross Stewart, and then Alcaraz potentially having to adapt his role or get a little bit better in a different role.
Possibly.
But
he could play where Stuart Armstrong plays when Stuart Armstrong can't.
It's also going to be a problem for a long time away, because even if Ross is available for West Brom in 2 weeks, let's say, he ain't going to be starting games for 4 or 5 weeks. I wouldn't, or maybe 3 weeks. I wouldn't imagine.
It does seem more positive this week, though, Alfie. I mean, he started to feature on the social media channels, and obviously he was there yesterday with Jack Stevens. So he's there now. We're seeing him as a presence. So, and I know that he was talking about him this week to say that he's almost close.
Yeah, Russell said in very simple terms that he'll either play this weekend or next, and I imagine it'll be next if I had to guess. But yeah, he'll be there within the next 2 weeks. But as I just said, I'd be very surprised if he starts, because I think we've seen with Camaldine how slowly Russell likes to sort of reintegrate the players and give them the chance to build their fitness up. And Camaldine was only out for 3 months, whereas Ross has been out for 10 months. So yeah, I think it'll be a slow introduction for him.
It's odd that we've scored, 5 goals this week, and we're still desperate for like a number 9 to come in and start. It's a nice problem to have. I did feel sorry for the ex-Birmingham manager this week, because obviously he got sacked, replaced by Wayne Rooney. Not only is all his hard work unravelling, I saw his name linked with Reading this week if they were to sack Sellers. So you've got to feel a bit for John
Reading
Eustace
haven't got the money to sack Sellers, let alone bring in someone of John Eustace's calibre.
Also, Bristol City have just sacked Nigel Pearson.
Well, this is it. There's a lot of Championship jobs up for grabs all of a sudden. You've got QPR,
managerial merry-go-round. Millwall as well, of course. Yeah.
I mean, Watford are only a game away from sacking a manager at any given moment as well. So yeah, I mean, John Eustace will get a Championship job before Christmas, I think.
Well, we'll get on to Millwall and their vacancy very soon, and we'll preview that game. There was another game this week. Preston, if you can't win, then don't lose. And that was certainly the case at Preston on Wednesday night. I mean, they left it later than previous weeks to grab a point. Glen, I cast your mind back to this one. It was pretty textbook in the first half, but the second half, just a crazy 10 minutes, which I think you likened to the Sunderland game. It was bad.
Yes. Yeah, it was. I mean, Russell Martin changed the team. He threw us a bit of a curveball last time there was a 3-game week by saying that he was going to rotate the squad and then basically not doing it. But I think with the Wednesday night, Saturday morning turnaround and carrying a few injuries into the game, so I think he it was always going to be the case this time. So consequently, when I saw the team, I was like, hang on, I thought we were out of the Carabao Cup. What's going on here? It looked a little bit like that. You see James Bree starting. I know, obviously we've already said he had a great game yesterday, but you see James Bree starting at left back, and Mason Holgate playing, and And the midfield was it Charles, Smallbone, and Downs, and you're just thinking, well, there ain't much creativity in there. What's going on? Two of the regular strikers were left out as well, so it was a bit of a strange one. And it looked like the team was set up just to keep it tight. And predictably, we weren't that creative in the first half. Goal aside, which was a tremendous goal by Carl Walker-Peters. And we had the incident just before half time, which, it's a great save from Bazunu, and everybody was screaming for a penalty, which I can't even bother to talk about it, really. It's just so ridiculous to think that's a penalty. Hits a guy who's not looking from a deflection 6 inches behind him. I mean,
as he's falling to the ground and tried to break his fall. It's like,
give yourself a break, lads. It's just ridiculous. But the start of the second half, they sent on a big lad up front. I think his name was Osmajic, something like that, and he was just a handful. Big, sort of rough, sort of centre forward. He just went barreling about. He seemed to unsettle us completely. Holgate tried to pick a fight with him. That was after Holgate had messed up the easiest kickoff routine that we've ever had by stopping the ball and then standing in the way as Bazunu tried to clear it. So that was,
and not rushing back to get on the line to cover either.
No,
just stood there going,
no, that was
weird. What have I done?
It's like that was weird. But anyway, Bednarek gave away a bit of a needless free kick, kicking the substitute, who then scored 1-1. And then Bednarek unfortunately gave the ball away again. Sold, I think it was a dozy short with a pass, and we were just shambolic. And I think, though he got very close to the goal before he hit it, I think Gavin Bazunu will be a little bit disappointed that kind of went straight through him. But we got, similar to the Birmingham game, after the wobble, which this time let in 2 goals instead of just the one, we got back on it, threw the subs on again. And again, Stuart Armstrong made a huge difference because suddenly we had a bit of control. We could pass the ball between the lines. There was another player to receive, and got the corner at the end. And it was a real shame it's not Bazunu's goal. It was that nice man Ched Evans who stuck it in for us. But it was a great finish, and nice to get a point out of what was a very difficult game where we had to rest a load of players.
And did they announce it, Alfie? Am I right in saying they announced it as Bazunu in the stadium?
Yeah, they did, unfortunately, because I thought it was an own goal like everyone else, but they gave it to Bazunu, so I was absolutely delighted for him. I spoke to him on Friday, and he's never even scored a goal before in his career, apparently. Not just at professional level, but even when he was 14 or 15, he never actually went up and scored. He said he hit a header onto a crossbar once, and he's been reliving it ever since, so a little bit gutted for him, but at the same time, it doesn't matter, does it? Let's be honest, it's not that deep. Like you say, 2 away games in a row, for credit to the fans, because like you say, they do a lot of travelling.
Yeah.
And to get those moments in the game, I know there's only 1 point on Wednesday, it makes it all worth it, to be fair. So, delighted with that.
Steve, I think he said this week that the squad should be good enough for players to step in when the schedule is busy or there's a couple of injuries. Did that kind of prove that some of them really aren't? There was a few that didn't come away with much glory after that.
Yeah, it was bitty, wasn't it? Second half especially. But the problem is you're kind of juggling with a load of different sort of considerations here. I mean, firstly, we've still got this issue where the first 15 minutes of second halves we are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're playing with what is essentially a second string 11, as we named on Wednesday night, because we made 5 changes, I think.
Yeah.
Then. And you've brought a load of players in to start who aren't used to starting games, and so their stamina isn't necessarily where it should be. And quite frankly, their performances have justified them being out of the picture to a certain extent. So, yeah, you're bringing in inferior players, and if you're then going into this 15-minute spell of madness that we seem to do every single game with weaker players, the results are likely to be worse. And we obviously shipped both goals in that period. Just irritating that. But yeah, as you say, a lot of the players that came in didn't really do a great deal. I mean, Smallbone was lucky, obviously, as one of the regulars. He was lucky not to get sent off in the first half, I thought. Number of
a couple of times out that this season, isn't it? I felt.
Yeah, he's sailed very close to the line on a few occasions, but that one seemed to be sort of a lot more sort of cutting it fine than any of the previous ones. And I don't know whether Shea Charles has just lost a bit of confidence. Doesn't seem to have that sort of authority that he looked when he played his first couple of games for us. In that
playing a very different role
role
as well, wasn't he, on Wednesday?
Yes, yeah, and yeah, all of a sudden he's not looking quite so sort of calm under pressure. Doesn't quite have the same bearings of what's around him. Sort of receiving the ball on the half turn as he would have done earlier in the season. So that's a slight concern. But I mean, defensively, really, other than the 2 goals and the save in the first half, I don't think they've created an awful lot, despite the fact that we've obviously chopped and changed quite a lot. The problem was at the other end, really, we just didn't create enough, and that was on decision making. I mean, Walker Peters has obviously gone on his own for the goal because he's not had. Shea Adams hasn't really made a run for him. In the end, Adams has got in there quite late, and it makes it look like he's put the keeper under pressure for the shot across him. But he was so far behind it. And I mean, I kind of almost thought that him going off at half time with a knock might have helped us and sort of prodded us into having a little bit more movement up front. But then Sekou Mara came on and unfortunately did a good passing impression of one of those the sort of silhouette people that you line the wall up to practice free kicks.
I was going to ask you about
unfortunately
him next, Glen. I mean,
it's a shame because I like the idea of Sekou Mara. He's got all the attributes. And you've seen in little fleeting moments where he's come off the bench, and last season there were, I think, 2 or 3 games where he came off the bench and made a genuine impact, and we got results out of games. And I mean, think how infrequently that was that we actually got results out of games.
Yeah.
And he came off the bench and made those happen. But this season, it's just not happening.
Do we stick with him, Glenn? See if he comes good, or is that someone you want to maybe get out on loan? It doesn't seem to be happening at the moment.
He's brilliant in training, apparently. I was speaking to the club on Friday.
Great
not
with
just
the
like
great with the under 21s.
No. Apparently, he's brilliant in training, like finishes and movement.
He should be, when Ross Stewart gets fit, Mara will go down the pecking order. I'd put him in the under 23s, to be honest. And we don't. People seem reluctant to do that these days. If you've got a professional on a relatively big contract, they seem unwilling to put him in the under 23s. But I think that would be ideal for him. Go in there, go and score some goals for the under 23s, and then we'll see where we are. He just doesn't contribute enough when he comes on. I mean, we had a couple of incidents at Preston where Camaldine got to the line, fired the ball across, no one there. Absolutely no one in the middle. And that was both halves, to be fair. Shea Adams was the same. He had no movement at all. And Sekou Mara in his defence, he does get messed around a little bit. It's like play right wing, play number 8, play centre forward. But it's it just, nothing seems to work with him. He's someone who, like you say, will go down the pecking order when Ross Stewart comes along, and he will be, whilst Adams is still there, he'll be 4th choice to play. And I imagine in the wide areas they'll even have someone like Joe Aribo will be ahead of him in the pecking order before you get to the likes of Edozie, Ryan Fraser. So
he'll have a decision to make, won't he?
He had a bit of an opportunity this season, or at the start of this season, to sort of stake a claim, and he just hasn't done it. And when you come in, you get given half a game, you have to make it count. I mean, we're talking about James Bree. That's what he's done. He's come in and played an unfamiliar position. I think that's really good management as well. To not, sorry, I'm going back to the other game. To not bring Ryan Manning back, because Ryan Manning is seen by many as being Russell Martin's boy. He's had him at the previous club, and for James Bree to come in, have a decent game and stay in the team, it's a good message to send to everybody else to say, well, if you think you're playing every week regardless, you might not be. And it's a good message to the squad players like Sekou Mara. You get in the team, you do well, you've got a chance of staying in. And that's what the James Bree, Ryan Manning situation has kind of said to me this week. So, but yeah, back to Mara. I don't think he's really. There's something not right there. There's something not right there. There's obviously a player in there. He plays for the French under-21 side, but at the moment he's kind of, season and a half. And what have we had? Maybe sort of 3 decent halves out of him. It's Moussa Djenepo levels, isn't it? And you just sort of think, is it ever going to happen?
Yeah.
He's played 21s once, Glenn. Do you remember how he got on?
Did he score a hat-trick or something?
He scored 4.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
We'll get on to the Millwall game very, very soon. I just want to go through Player of the Week. So many standout players. I think it's going to be almost impossible to narrow it down. Steve, one name from you, standout Player of the Week, please.
I'll go with the Stadium PA, Jan Bednar.
Okay. Glenn?
James Bree.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
Simply
Alfie?
because what I was expecting compared to what we got.
Yeah, fair play. Alfie?
Yeah, I'll obviously go for Flynn Downs then.
Yeah, nice. Okay, good set. We'll get that poll on the social media in just a moment. Now, after a few trips north in recent weeks, I think Alfie will be quite relieved to hear that it's a relatively short trip to East London this weekend for Millwall. To help us preview that game, I'm pleased to say that we're joined by Micky from the That Millwall Podcast. Cheers for coming on, Micky. How are you? All right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Unless you're relaying back to 1885 time, we've not been East London since 1910, fella. We're South East London, proud of it.
My apologies. My apologies.
It would be a bit like me saying you were further along the coast, which I wouldn't say and insult you, and you wouldn't be too happy. So, we'll leave that one alone, shall we?
All right, well, let's get on to the game, shall we? Because it's been, it was a frustrating one at the weekend, wasn't it? Was it a 92nd minute equaliser for Watford?
Yeah.
I mean, that's we've scored a few last-minute equalisers and we've conceded a few, so that must have been pretty tough to take.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite weird because obviously Millwall being Millwall, the chant went out. You must be. I don't know if I can swear on it, but you must be crap, shall we say? We're beating you away from home. You're getting beat by Millwall. And you should just know as soon as that chant comes out that it's not going to end well. It gets a free header, gets on, and it turns into a 2-2 draw when I think probably Adam Barrett wanted a win so that he could give himself a bit of a good standing for the manager's job. But yeah, it's a draw. We seem to be draw specialists at the moment. We seem to go out not to lose. And try to keep ourselves in the game. But yes, we need to be a bit more attacking. We'll play you and probably beat your hands down. But yeah.
Do you think they stick with the caretaker manager? It's been. Were they right to change? Did you need a change because Robert had been there? Was it 4 years? It was knocking on 4.
Yeah, it'd been there 4 years. I mean, look, you can't take anything away from Rowett. I mean, Rowett was great for us. He stabilised the ship. We become a championship stability. We were now within the championship. We're never in relegation, so we're always 10th, 12th or above. But we just couldn't make that final step. And he tried untold amount of times. And I think, to be fair, what sort of killed him was Blackburn last year, where we were winning 3-0 at half time. The players come out. And we just lost. We lost 4. I think we lost 4-3 in the end. And Blackburn hadn't scored in so many games, and let alone 4 goals in a game. And it's as if someone walked round at half time and offered the players £100 each just not to turn up afterwards, or someone took them down to Toby Carvery. Do you know what I mean? It was a completely different team would come out at half time, and you were just. Everyone was ecstatic. We're beating 3-0. We're in the playoffs. We're going to get. It's in our destiny. We could well do it. And then literally, it was as if another team walked out second half. We were just shocking. And yeah, that was the writing on the wall was from that game. To be fair, and it was it wasn't it wasn't if, it was more when is he going to go? And yeah, he's gone. But it's boring. His football was boring. I mean, you probably had it at your place. It was as if he was playing not to lose rather than to win a game. So it wasn't about drawing or winning. It was always about not losing. So it was always doing stuff with the pretense of, if we get a chance, we could score a goal and nick it, but I don't want them coming anywhere near us. And I think that's why we were predominantly playing with about 5, because he was just scared.
And how's the squad looking at the moment? I mean, have you got the players there? Is it just a case of the caretaker manager having to get the best out of them? Are you confident with the squad that you've got?
I mean, on paper, we've got a great team. It depends what team you're looking at. Are you looking at a team who's injured and sitting on the sidelines, or are you talking about a team that's playing? We've got, on paper, we've got a great team. You know, Casper Denora is, you know, the Belgian lad, phenomenal. Harding is, again, you know, a cracking player. Fleming is a cracking player waiting to come on again. You know, Cour and Cuffy is the Arsenal loanee who was at Coventry last year, who played in the playoffs. Again, he's on his own, he's coming in. It's just playing the players in the right positions. Now, Saturday we had Saville back in the team, and he can just make changes. You need him because he's just got that competitive edge on him and kicks the other players into gear. So, yes, it's what's needed, but it's how well they play on the day, and that's the problem.
Is there a few more that we can expect back for the weekend? Anybody else coming back in? What sort of game are we expecting?
I don't think we've got any more coming in. I mean, we've got Joe Bryan's off now with a groin, and I don't think Hutchinson and the like will be back. I don't think there's any really outstanding what's coming back before now and Saturday. A few what were injured, what are slowly coming, some in yesterday, like Nesbitt and that. So yeah, you could be in a bit of trouble on Saturday. We might have at least a couple of strikers handy. But yeah, it's going to be a big game on Saturday. Not just on the pitch, but we're probably one of the best teams will celebrate our armed forces. So you're coming along to do the Remembrance Day, which obviously I organise all the soldiers and stuff like that. So it's a very emotional day if you've not seen it before. And it's, you know, we have a lot of soldiers there, a lot of armed personnel, so Navy, soldiers, etc. They collect the poppies and then they do something around the pitch and take wreaths on. So, yeah, it's a good day. I mean, if there's any of your listeners, I don't know when it's going out, but if there's, you know, anyone who's serving who's a Southampton fan who wants to get in, as long as you get to me by, you know, probably Wednesday or so, mate, give me a shout. And if you're happy to turn up in uniform and help out and stuff, I'll get you on the picture with the guys. So it's not a problem. We can get you collecting in the way. And
well, we can certainly share those details. Glenn, there's not been many games over the years, but there's been a few goals when we played them before. So, I mean, obviously, we're talking a good few years ago now, but what were you expecting for the weekend?
I don't really know. I mean, Micky's covered sort of what I was going to talk about, really. It was that Millwall seemed to draw a lot of games. And I did wonder if that was down to the manager or the personnel, and he's kind of answered that one. You know, we'll go into the game full of confidence. Millwall have obviously got this uncertainty with not having a manager at the moment. I doubt. I mean, what are we? Oh, I mean, do you think, Micky, there'll be an appointment this week, or is that likely to drag on longer?
I don't think there will. I mean, people have been saying that there is, but reading behind the lines, it looks as if we've possibly only spoken to 2 or maybe 3 managers only on first interview. I don't think the second interviews have taken place yet. And because of that, I don't think there's a decision yet. I think we'll probably go to international break. And then during the international break, we might make an announcement. It probably doesn't help that QPR's looking now, and obviously there's rumour about Norwich as well. So, you know, potentially we're going to have to act fast if we want the people who we want, just in case someone else snaps them up.
Yeah, what sort of manager would you be anticipating that they go for? And would that be the same as you'd go for personally yourself?
I mean, personally, I'd love to see Muscat, but he's unproven in the Championship. He is a Millwall what we would class as a Millwall type player, and I think he put the Millwall back into Millwall. As much as a lot of the managers, Harris got who we are. The problem we had under Rowett was that we could have a full stadium and he wouldn't know how to use that to his advantage. If you speak to Neil Harris about full stadiums and go back to when we played Huddersfield in the playoff, you could smell the fear, you could smell the violence in the air, even though there wasn't any, but you could smell it. Do you know what I mean? You've probably been to big games with rivals and stuff where you can smell that atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the trouble is with Rowett, he could smell it, but he used a bit of Febreze instead and just sort of got rid of it. He just killed it. The atmosphere's there. The whistle blows. The first 10 minutes, the atmosphere's building. And then where you want a player to go for another player to really get the crowd on, we just, do nothing. And then the atmosphere dies and you ain't getting it back. You definitely ain't going to get it back when the team scores 2 or 3 goals against you, are you? So it's sort of head down and it just destroys it. But that's, we've had the biggest crowds over the last season and this season, yet he done nothing with it. So we need someone who can get the crowd on board. Hopefully it won't be Michael Beale, because I don't think he's what we want.
I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, that guy.
No.
What would you think of Nathan Jones, Micky?
Nathan Jones is a good one because he worked on a similar budget and he likes the young kids, but allegedly he's supposed to be an absolute nightmare to deal with. So I don't know if the board would be too keen on that because they'd probably want someone they could fairly control. Or being Millwall, the problem is that the media is on you constantly. So the last thing I can see them wanting to do is have a manager who's just drawing media attention week in, week out. So I think it will probably be a conservative manager. I'd love to see, Warnock. Warnock would be have a go. I think he understands who we are over the times we're playing us. And, he knows what we are, what we expect, and it'd be a good one. But I don't think we'd get him. I think QPR will get him. I'd just like to see Millwall. So, I don't know. Muscat would be a dream if you couldn't get him. Nathan Jones would probably be okay. Newstead could be okay. It's just, to be honest, mate, it doesn't matter who we say. The board will have who they want to put in place, and it'll be as always. It'll be the fan base. Do you know what I mean? We're doing what we want to do, and sod us. We've gone from being football fans to punters now, and it's all about how much money we're going to spend on the day now than anything else. So don't get me started on that one.
Steve, what are your thoughts on this one for the weekend? Because you must have been to a few Saints Millwall games over the years. I remember what was it, League Championship, wasn't it, the last time we played, I guess?
Yeah, last one.
There was a League Cup game too, wasn't there?
We played them in the League Cup shortly after we signed...
2014 or something, was it?
Well, it was straight after we'd had that summer where we'd sold 47 players and signed 47 to replace them.
You still beat us 3-0 though, didn't you?
2, I think.
Yeah.
Graziano Pella got his first goal for us right at the very end of that game. But yeah, we were. Yeah, I always enjoyed games at the Den because you've got London Bridge, short hop away for drinks, loads of great pubs there, and there's just loads of options for a good day out. And people kind of pontificate over sort of how go to Millwall isn't it unsafe? No. Of course it's not. It's
safest ground in the city.
Safest ground in the country you go to because you don't get near a home fan all afternoon. It's ridiculous.
No, you've got a walkway. You've got a walkway that takes you straight from the station. And the thing is now for you lot, since the last time you come, you've now got a bar right outside the away stand entrance. So you can congregate outside the away end and keep drinking. And now that we're with Shepherd Neame or wherever, you've got decent beer rather than old crappy Carlsberg stuff.
That's good.
Get a proper pint. That's what we want.
You can get London Pride there now as well. if you like beer and that.
Alfie, your thoughts on this one? You kind of think with the atmosphere, it could be a bit charged, and we're going to have to start this one well. Start on the front foot. We don't want to be having a wobble after the break either.
Well, there'll
we,
be
really?
one wobble, won't there? I mean, we're guaranteed at least
some
one
point.
wobble at this point, but it's how they respond to it. I think, to be fair, I'm looking forward to going to Den for the first time massively. I've got a friend who's a Millwall fan, and he's got amazing things to say. And he was actually at that Blackburn game, Micky was, and he told me all about it. Absolute disaster. But the last time Russell Martin actually had a week to work with his squad was before the Leeds game. And that went pretty well. The first 45 minutes were brilliant. The second half was obviously hanging on a little bit. But that was the last time he actually had a week to work with them. I know he had the international break in between now and then. But obviously we know that loads of players go away. So I'm intrigued to see what they come up with. Whether he, like I say, whether he sticks with what we saw on Saturday, whether he comes up with something a little bit creative like we saw against Leeds, I'm not too sure. But maybe I would keep it simple and stick to what we know. But yeah, I think it would be a good opportunity to really go on a run now. Like you say, if Micky says about drawing games, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if they drew, but I'm pretty confident they can go on a good run.
Micky, we always finish with a score prediction. We always get them wrong, so it doesn't really matter.
So do we. So do we on ours, so don't worry there, mate. So, yeah.
How do you see this one playing out? What if I was to ask you for a score prediction? What do you reckon?
I'm probably going to go. I'm going to go Millwall 2-1, and the only reason I go for probably 2-1 is because you're relatively new into the Championship. I would say that it's your players are Premiership, precious boys who I think will find playing at the Den very close to a bald-headed 50-year-old man who's going to tell them exactly, or even a 70-year-old woman who's going to tell them in no uncertainties what sort of person they are, will intimidate them to another level potentially. I don't know how they found it throughout the season, but Millwall, the pitch is deceiving. It's bigger than they think, and also the throw-ins are very, very close to the player. I mean, the fans could quite happily tap them on the back, which would be interesting. I mean, I remember when Ben Chigwell come a few years back in the FA Cup, and he got that concerned that he refused to take throw-ins anymore. So, he denies all knowledge of it, but we saw him that night where he was telling people, I'm not doing it anymore. I would go 2-1 purely because whenever we're the underdogs, we normally pull something out of the bag. And because of the day, because it's at home, because it's got the Remembrance Day, which is all special, hopefully that will give the players enough of the kick to go on and do something about it. But, knowing Millwall at the moment, mate, you'll probably stuff at 6 or 7-0.
Steve, score prediction from you. I'm just going to go around the screen.
I think... I mean, as we've kind of discussed at length, we now seem to have worked out what we're doing, and I think the only thing that can kind of knock us off course at the current moment is something off field, which may well be tight, intimate atmosphere at the Den. If a few players don't fancy it, then that's a potential issue. But you'd like to think professional footballers these days can block the vast majority of that stuff out. You'd like to think so, at least, but we'll see. I mean, I think we should have enough quality. Whether that comes to pass, I mean, I could always see Bartosz Białkowski having an absolute stormer against us. But I
love your optimism.
I think we'll nick it. Go for it. I mean, let's be honest, no clean sheet once again.
No,
so 2-1 win.
Okay. Glenn?
Similar to what Steve said, as usual. There's a lot of factors at play with this. Yes, the ground, as Micky's just said, the Remembrance Day stuff, the emotion that will be around that. The fact that Millwall still haven't got a manager, Adam Barrett, he probably knows he's got maybe 2 games. And this will be a big opportunity for him if he gets. We are seen as one of the biggest scalps this year. So if he gets a win in this game, he'll see this as a good opportunity to put his case forward. Whether he's got a chance or not, he'll certainly see it that way. So I think this is probably going to be a very tough one. I talked about the games we had in the frozen wastelands of the north, where obviously we're going to be down south for this one. But I still think a tough game. I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
Okay. Alfie?
Yeah, I think there are players in the Saints squad that will have played at the Den and will have sort of played in that atmosphere. I think James Bree, Adam Armstrong, Taylor Howard-Bellis, Flynn Downs, to name sort of 4 or 5 of them. So I think there will be elements they can handle that. But I've seen also, I think was it Leeds and Swansea who stuffed Millwall at home, is it, Micky? So I think it's 3-0 both those games. So I think there's the potential for that to happen. I don't think that will happen.
Nice.
I'll go for a 2-1 win.
Okay.
Saints.
If we beat you, can I come back on next week and just rub it in his face?
Of course, you are more than welcome. I get the impression we could talk all night. We could do like an hour just chatting to you. So
we're going live. We do a live show tonight at 9. So if any of you want to come on, mate, and talk about it, come on, not a problem. Or anyone can listen to us talking about how bad we did at the weekend. So you can get some more tips.
Yeah, we're used to that.
Just one final question for you, Micky. Flynn Downs, obviously being a West Ham player, is that going to go down well the weekend?
Oh, he get dog good. So I just realised that we are live here. So I don't want to get you penalised by YouTube, but I would say that he will get some rather pleasant abuse, no doubt. So yeah, and also if you're fans, just something for your fans. Don't sing we're blowing bubbles because we don't care. We just think it's stupid. But for some reason, away teams this season keep singing it, and it's as if we're offended. We're not, but it's just we just think that you're pathetic. But it's up to you.
Yeah, football fans as a collective don't tend to have the brightest of minds, do they? So I mean, let's be honest, it will happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely it will happen. But no, all I say is, listen, the way we do it at Millwall, just briefly before going, the way we do it at Millwall is that we do last post and then the whistle blows. So we'll have last post, the minute silence, and then basically the ref blows, and then that's the start of the game. But you'll get the information, how it works and everything else. And obviously, each year we try and beat the previous records. And normally on Poppy Day, we raise best part of 20 grand or thereabouts and over. Awesome. So any of your guys, make sure you bring loads of change. We will be mugging you before you leave. And it is by force the way we do it. But
and we will share those details as well. We'll share those details like we said. So I hope all that goes well. Enjoy the game. And if it's all right with you, we'll get you on again later in the season. We'll catch up then.
Not a problem. I tell you, it'll be good to catch up with you before we come to your place, because that'll be the anniversary of when we played you in '76, when 8 of our fans died on the way to a game. So it'd be good to maybe just highlight that for some of the fans who don't know. So yeah, it'd be great to do that.
We'll absolutely do that. Micky, all the best with it, and good luck with
No
the
worries.
podcast tonight. Take care. Thanks for coming on.
Mate. Speak to you later. Thanks. Bye bye.
There's one more thing I just wanted to touch on before we finish tonight. Alfie, the night at St Mary's this week, the Great Escape evening, I just wanted to find out how that was, because obviously Marion Pahars was back at St Mary's on Saturday, and it looked like a good, fun evening, and hopefully they can do more stuff like that.
Yeah, it was fun, and they are planning on doing more stuff like that, so they're going to do a number of class of evenings. But what I thought was absolutely brilliant about it was people, like say your age, loads of grown men with businesses or with their wives, whatever, and they're all absolutely starstruck at Marion Pahars being back at St Mary's. And I learned so much about Marion in this week as well, because also we all know about the Tizzers of the world and whatnot, but I learned a lot about Marion and his just absolutely vital goals, obviously against Everton the last day of the season and then for the next few years as well. So what a legend to come back, and obviously he donated his medal that he was given for scoring the first goal at St Mary's back to St Mary's, so that's somewhere in the stadium now to view. I'm not sure exactly where, but then I spoke to him as well on Friday at length for an interview feature that will hopefully be coming next week. But yeah, he's a brilliant character. It was a good night. Dave, who runs the hospitality, or who does the hosting rather, is absolutely brilliant. So if anybody's interested in that kind of thing, it's 100% worth a go. The Halo Lounge is fantastic.
You got a really good reaction as well on Saturday. If you missed it, there's a little video on our Instagram, so you can go and check that out at any time you like. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. That's it for this week's episode. Don't forget you can follow Total Saints Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Total Saints Pod. We're also on Instagram and Threads. It's at Total Saints Podcast if you're on there. And you'll know that if you're watching this podcast on Sunday evening, we live stream TSP every week to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Twitch, and our YouTube. We do enjoy hearing from you during the week. week as well. You can drop us a DM on any of the socials, or you can email us via the website. And as I mentioned at the start, we're also on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contribution. It's patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. You can find out about the 4 tiers on there that range from £5 to £20 per month. Each of those tiers comes with different perks. There's the weekly shout-outs, of course, to the patrons in the Francis Benali and the Mick Shannon tiers. So thanks to Dave Melton, Mark Atkins, Andy Hollis, Matt Hall, Anthony Thompson, Saints in Exile, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, and Drew Dyer, who are all in our Francis Benali tier. And also to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Ed Busy, Nick Higston, Phil Cook, Matt Rose, and Nick Reed, who are in the Mick Shannon tier. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you to Alfie. Cheers for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you again next week.